Good afternoon, everyone, and a happy St. Patrick's Day to you all. Welcome to the March 17th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. Coming up first, we have on the consent agenda the minutes of the council meeting held March 3rd, 2025, the approval of the council meeting agenda. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendations, please? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beil. Any errors, omissions, or comments on the minutes? For your agenda, we'll bring it up in the notices of motion at the end. Yes, we have two notices of motion coming up here that we'll bring up in the notice of motion section. The first one is going to be heard today for Councillor Gore. So it's a notice of motion regarding leave of absence for Councillor Gore. So that'll come up later on. Thank you. Minutes of the council meeting. I already went through that. So we got a mover and seconder and everything else okay. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. We have one presentation today by the Regional District of Nanaimo regarding the referendum for the proposed Ravensong Aquatic Center expansion. A presentation by Mr. Osborne, the General Manager of Recreation and Parks for the RDN, regarding the approval process to borrow funds for the proposed expansion of the Ravensong Aquatic Center. Mr. Osborne, it's all yours, sir. Welcome. Nice tie.
As those were at the Qualcomm council meeting know, I am colorblind, so I'm told this is a green tie. And I think this is a green light as well.
Yeah,
so
green.
Yeah, so you'll keep me on task on that.
Just for the occasion, green microphone.
Great, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about the Ravensong Aquatic Center expansion project. This is a topic that's been reviewed and discussed in the Oceanside community for almost 20 years, a period of time to look at expanding and providing additional aquatic space in the Oceanside area. I'll be going through a series of slides, but the reason why I am here is to talk about the Ravensong Aquatic Center expansion referendum. As you can see on the slide, the general voting day will be on April 5th, of which the community will be asked to come and answer a question in regards to allowing to borrow up to $30 million to proceed with the expansion of the Ravensong Aquatic Center in the Oceanside area. With me today, I'd like to introduce, if you haven't met him, Mr. Graham Doan. He's behind me right now. Graham's our manager of recreation services. He joined the RDN this January. So he's joined us right in a very pinnacle time of the conversation about the aquatic center in the area. And please welcome Graham to the community.
Welcome.
So as this slide shows, and as I mentioned earlier, the Aquatic Center has been under consideration for quite some time in the Oceanside area. The original building was built in 1995. And then in 2006 was the first time it was identified there was a need for additional aquatic space in the Oceanside area as this community was expanding and growing. This was confirmed again in regards to the recreation master plan that was undertaken, which the snapshot was taken. Is there still a need in the community for expanded aquatic space? And that was then identified.
Tom, if I could put it on hold 1 second. Amanda, point of clarity, are the side monitors working? But they're not, though, not currently working. That wasn't a question. Can they be working? Thank you. Sorry, Tom.
Sure, no
Carry
problem.
on, sir.
Yeah. Around 2020, that is when the RDN board did ask RDN staff to proceed with the options of pursuing the expansion at the Aquatic Center. And I should also note in the Oceanside Recreation Master Plan, when the need for Aquatic Center was first identified, there was really two options for consideration, and that was to either expand an existing facility or provide a second facility elsewhere in the Oceanside area. The master plan did speak to the operational efficiencies of expanding the existing facility mostly to do with staffing, control of the facility, also the mechanics of it all going forward. There was an option as well to build another facility in the Parksville area, which the plan did identify, but it also noted the expense of operating two facilities, and then the size of the community wasn't quite there at this stage in the game. As this council well knows, the city of Parksville did undertake a review of the potential pool of the Parksville, building a pool in Parksville by the city of Parksville. That review was undertaken and ultimately led to a request to the RDN board to consider undertake a feasibility study to build a pool in Parksville. That request went forward, but it was not agreed to at the RDN board based on the current plan to expand the facility. I can field any questions on that at appropriate time, but I know this council is well versed in that conversation, but it is a period of time that the pool was being considered elsewhere. So as we move forward into the later years, we have refined the project. So we are now at what's called a Class B estimate. Thank you. That is being used for the pool. So this diagram gives an overlay of what the new facility would look like with the expanded area. It will include a new 4-lane, 25-meter pool, a leisure pool with play features with 0 depth entry, lazy river, a new sauna steam room, and a bigger lobby, and it has net zero design features. So speaking to the 0 depth entry, this is a key component of the new facility. It is around accessibility that needs to be provided in your public facilities. And being 0 depth allows people to enter the pool with minimum or no assistance, whereas the existing tank right now, you do need to be lowered in with assistance. So if you are in a wheelchair, we do have aquatic wheelchairs, but you need to be lowered into the existing tank. It also has additional universal change rooms, and that's around the accessibility side as well. Right now, there is times and periods that the existing change rooms are full or at capacity and uncomfortable to be in. And the new layout provides for better flow through the building for people to change and enter to the aquatic space. And then lastly, the net zero design features, which we'll speak to later into the presentation, but it speaks to the renewable energy and to be carbon neutral at this facility as well too. So this slide that we have here today is speaking to the dry spaces. What we have is an increased reception area, expanded viewing and gathering areas, again, more accessible space for all community members, and enhanced customer service area. And also not in this slide, but of course is transit and bicycle parking is being provided for the active transportation side of the world. There's also 2 multi-purpose rooms that are being considered as well too in the proposed expansion. And that is to provide both for public use meeting space as well as instruction space for both our lifeguards, but general programs as well going forward on that front. One item on dry spaces that the design is being provided for, and we did hear when we were undertaking the community engagement, is the fitness center aspect to be included into a possible complex in the future. It did push the project budget above a threshold that the RDM board and the committee that was reviewing this was comfortable with. But we do know that a fitness facility is a key component to aquatic facilities as well too. It's a good synergy, both for therapeutic use as well as for daily fitness routines. So within this complex, it does provide for structural improvements to the administration area where the walls and the flooring and the footings and the roof will hold a second story one day down the road kind of thing. And that's been built into this stage of the project. So in future times when there is the ability to pay for a fitness center, it can be added on with valuable space that we need to have in our community. These 2 images will give the council a very good idea of what the aquatic space looks like. It is being added on to our existing tank. You can see here the 4-lane 25-meter pool, the 0 depth entry as well, and the viewing areas that will people be able to see activities on the pool. Right now, we do have some very pinch points in regards to, you'll hear about aquafit quite a bit, maybe in the community. It's a very busy time. This allows for additional aquafit to take place, but also additional activities to take place while aquafit is taking place as well too. There is also a need for lap swimming, potentially when an alternative use is using the main tank, and the lazy river and the leisure space provides for that. So it does provide for really good multi-generational programming in the facility. We do need to meet the needs of all members of our community, both young and as we age in life. And it's important for a public facility to be meeting those needs. Now, when you build an aquatic center, it does come in an expenditure, and I'll review this slide in some detail and I'll move into some operational slides as well too. But in regards to the overall project, it is $36 million, $36.4 million as a total. Of that, around 30 million is tied to the project. There is a cost for what we call sequence construction, and that is to allow the pool to not close for the whole period of time during construction. I'll go through a slide later as well too, what that looks like. So it does have some closure periods, but it does cost more to keep the doors open while you're constructing as opposed to shutting them down. And you see that's valued at $642,000 in this slide. As a local government, we have to be carbon neutral. We have to be working towards that. And that comes out an expenditure of about $5.4 million. And then there's project management fees, which are shown in this slide. We need to sign in anywhere here. Okay. In regards to the Ravensong Aquatic Center service, it's a very unique service on how it is taxed, and it's actually taxed by way of usage, where majority of the time local government expenditures are taxed by way of assessment. And so through this service bylaw that the pool works under, the RDN undertakes a survey every 5 years to determine where people are coming from. And it's then averaged over 3 survey cycles over the last 15 years, just to make sure that everything's even on an even keel as we undertake those surveys. And from this slide, you can see where people are coming from to use the pool. And for example, Parksville and Qualicum are the 2 highest users in there, with Parksville at 26.4%. And it varies by jurisdiction all the way through to electoral area E, which is the lowest participant at 4.5%. Through this, the borrowing bylaw then provides for those that are using it to pay the higher amount, basically. And as sort of an equity standpoint, as this bylaw was run through. So the slide speaks for itself, so I can answer any questions on this later that the council may have. So that the last slide was. Yep. This slide is around operational costs as well too. So the last slide was tied specifically to the borrowing costs. The slide that I have up for council's view here right now is around the operational costs. So this is really for reference purposes, but you can see the baseline for the 2024 tax requisition for the city of Parksville would be 6483 based on your average residential home value. And once should the project go forward and building becomes operational, you do have to pay for, operating the building, people within the building, pay for the energy of an expanded building and so forth. And that's referencing these operational costs. So you'll see that will start off at $79 while design work is taking place. More design and construction work and borrowing would be taking place in 2026. And by 2029, after 2028 becoming operational, that would be really a first year of it in operation and the impact on the tax side. Should note these are estimates based on our 5-year plan that has been approved. There is refinements that still need to be done, and I will point out the energy savings. We're looking at obviously working towards a carbon neutral facility, but it also sees reductions in savings in regards to the cost to purchase energy. Those still need to be done. Additional modeling would have to be done as the project going forward, but you should see a downturn or a down pressure on on the overall budget for a reduction in costs on consuming energy for this project. And with that, that's a nice segue into this slide here. It does speak to the low emission strategy that's underway here. So it will have lower emissions, and it will be a clean all-electric designed to reduce emissions by 94% from the existing facility. So even if it's larger, it will actually be operating at 94% less energy. And with that, it'll have lower, that's the emission side, if I will, and then it will have lower energy demand of roughly around 37%. So with that, the RDM board is applying and has applied for a series of grants. One grant that is being applied for is around inclusivity, accessibility, and carbon neutrality. I remain very optimistic that our submission will be received favorably. If we do receive a grant application and it is successful, that would then be applied to this project. And if it is successful, it will help on two fronts. It would actually lower the amount that we'd have to tax for the project, as well as it does provide for that buffer of the last 4 or 5 weeks. Every time you open the news, there's something going on down south that we're have to be aware of as we go forward. So with that, if there is a reduction, the bylaw question, which I'll get to at the last, but it will remain the same, but basically it allows the RDN to borrow up to $30 million. Obviously, if you have more money in reserves or other sources, you wouldn't use that full amount. The purpose of this slide is just to show the timing as we go forward on this and sort of the open and closure periods, and then the phasing. In short, the new pool will be built while the existing pool is being used. And then when the new pool is being added, there'll be demolition and adding into the old pool over, and then demolition of the change room areas. The space will be moving from right to left in this model here. So if you know the facility, you'll know it well, but there'll be some entrances to be changing over this period of time. There is a reality that you do have to close, obviously for balancing of the facility at the end from your handling units and so forth, and just tying over entrance features and so forth going on. So we'll give you an idea of what you're looking at here, but a closure window of roughly 3 months at the start, about 1.5 years, will be open and closing for 3 months, then open for just under 1 year, and then closing for 1 month for commissioning is what this graph is representing here. As I mentioned, the engagement process as approved by the board has been underway, and I've got a great team I've been working with over the last few weeks here. We just concluded last Wednesday, our last of our in-person open houses, where we've gone to each jurisdiction that helps fund a pool. So as you can see through here, we've been everywhere from Bowser to Noose and all points in between, and concluded Electoral Area G on Wembley Road on Wednesday. To date, we had just over 250 people attend those virtual sessions, so very well engaged. But there's a very prominent use of the internet and our web. And at this point in time, the website for the expansion project and the referendum is visited to date of 3,300 visits have been underway right now. So people are clearly engaging through other forums and certainly through that document, which we highly encourage communities and residents to do so. So when's the big days? And I say days because there is advanced polling as well too. So we are now on the home stretch, and we'll be moved over to the community to vote on a project and to weigh their options on how they feel it meets the needs of them as individuals, their communities going forward. So with that, there is advanced voting on March 26th and April 2nd. All residents that qualify will need to go to the Qualicum Beach Community Hall to vote for the advanced voting. And then we move to general voting day on April 5th from 8 o'clock to 8 p.m. And if you're a Parksville resident, you need to go to the Craig Street Commons to vote. And there's other voting locations for people from electoral areas E, F, G, and H and Qualicum Beach. And on that day, you do need to go to your vote. As far as the overall referendum goes, it is the majority of those voting, so 50 or 50 plus one of those that are voting on days will, if it's passed, then the board will have the option to carry on with the borrowing bylaw as going forward. If it is not supported, it is defeated, and the RDM board will have to find other ways to reconsider providing aquatic space for the growing communities of the Oceanside area. There is a slide. I do encourage people to go to the website to learn who is eligible to vote. We've worked very hard to ensure that every property owner, every resident who is qualified to vote has received that in the mail or by way of paper. And it includes non-resident property owners that you may own property in the area. And thank you to the City of Parksville staff for working with our staff to ensure that people who may not be residing in the area but own property will have received notice of this as well too. So it's been really good to hear whilst we've been in the open houses. An information pamphlet's been handed out. I have not heard yet of one person who has not received it, which is wonderful news as we go forward. And I'm seeing nods to the head of councillors that if you've in the City of Parksville, you received it. So it's been very well out there in the community. There's been newspaper ads, radio ads, as well as the online presence going on. So we encourage community members to go to the website to learn more. There's actually two sites, one on the expansion project itself, and then another site for how to vote, where to vote. There is some really good videos you can watch, and a great background material that people can reference as well on what led up to these days and what's led up to the decision on April 5th. So with that, through to the mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions that you or council members may have.
Thanks very much, Tom. Great presentation, and to see the slides up close, in particularly the accessibility that is planned for in the new expansion. I think you call it what, a zero entrance? Is that the correct term? The zero entrance and plus the accessibility features throughout the rest of the facility is welcomed, and as well as the expanded space for Aquatic, which I think is so important that we're by providing these spaces, we're providing spaces for all, but also with the Aquatic and the lane swimming and so forth, we're providing facilities where people can increase their health potential, so forth, by using the new facility. And with the Aquatic, I know it's very well attended, and even with the people doing lane swimming, it's allowing people to stay aging in their homes longer by getting proper recreation. And these facilities are certainly required and desired by many. So I would like to first go to Councillor Beil, had her hand up first. Go ahead, Councillor Beil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Osborne, for the presentation. I had two questions, really just for clarification. One was regarding how the cost is shared across the whole district, the Oceanside area. And so I understand that it's usage, but I gather it's a mix of usage as well as assessment. Can you just review and clarify exactly how that works? And then I do have one other question. Thank you.
Yeah, through to the councillor's question from the mayor. It is based on usage. So we do a usage survey, and then based on that, it's then broken out across the board. We do use slides to do a comparative value for a community to determine how they fit in after the usage is applied. So if I have the ability to. Yeah, so in regards to the borrowing bylaw, and I'll use Parksville as an example here. So the Parksville usage is at 26.4%. The annual debt payment for the city of Parksville as collected would be $636,460. So that's the amount that would be collected. And then this is where the assessment kind of picks up a little bit. $69.32 would be allocated to the average residential property owner. And we use that as I don't have it with me here today on this slide. I could check the next one. Is that? Yeah, I do. So you could see an average residential property owner in parcel is 760,678. So if you're above that amount, you'll pay slightly more than that $69. If you're below that, you pay slightly less than that. But it's really the apportion out that would go to 60 parcel that then gets parcel out and picks up the annual debt repayment of $6.4 million, for example. So the overall amount, it gets divvied out to the community. You still have to collect by way of assessment. Your finance staff work on that, but it is calculated based on usage.
And if I can just interject on the uses, then right back to you, Councillor Beil. On the usage, I would think since you have the projection for a 5-year plan starting through going to 29, when the facility is fully booked out, I would anticipate that those usage percentages may change, would they not, with the increased facilities? Because a lot of people have given up because of the over usage of the Ravensong right now, but once they see the new facility. So do you anticipate that those usage rates are going to change based on your area that you live in?
Yeah, through to the mayor's question, a good one. We'll find out. So we over the roughly 15 years of survey data, there hasn't been very big swings. There's been plus or minuses depending on what your area is. You are seeing some shifts in your communities, and I say that communities across the Oceanside area. So, for example, Latrobe Area F has a younger population as utilizing our recreation facilities more than some other areas. You'll also see a difference between usage between the pool and the arena, for example. And that's based on who goes to a pool and who goes to an aquatic center. So we will find out based on the next survey. I would anticipate it will be fairly consistent with what we've been seeing, but there will be more. So you'll see more people attending the pool, but I'd look to your town planners and look to the future on who is moving into this area. There may be some shifts going forward, with this apartments and at the lake in the Parksville area and multifamily dwellings or senior-based homes in other areas of our communities.
Yes, and that's also what I was alluding to as well, where the growth potential for the housing starts in area will definitely be affecting that and probably affecting Parksville considerably with the amount of development we have going on. Councillor Beil, follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so another question, not about the cost, but this time, at the end of the day, how many lanes will be available? So I wasn't totally clear on that, but that final illustration, is that what it's going to look like? I have looked at this in the past, but I don't recall every detail.
Through to the councillor's question. The current facility has 6 lanes, 25 meters, and you'll see here there's actually 4 new 25-meter lanes being added. So a total of 10 lanes combined.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Tom, for the presentation. I've been quite involved in the past with the Commonwealth Pool in Victoria. Did you do any research? Did you ever look into that? Because, good. What I found there was, because I lived in the region, we have all our different, my fees there were a little less. If I didn't live in the region, the fees were a little more. Is that the principle you're going to be using, or how does that, have you thought about that, or? Okay, thank you.
Through to the councillor's question, this really, when the Ravensong Aquatic Center was first built, it included electoral areas F, G, H, Parksville, and Qualicum Beach. It did not include electoral area E. At that point in time, the new spay was not put into aquatic service, so there was a 2-tier system put in place. This is a challenge that multiple jurisdictions do have. I know it's a challenge in the Alberni Valley. It was a challenge in the Comox Valley. It's a challenge across sort of the province. That has been addressed, and that was by way of the use of surveys that have been undertaken. Hence why the RDN board has been, and the RDN has undertaken the use of surveys. And when in the last 2 years, there was a bylaw amendment to the service bylaw. So Nanaimo Bay is now a participant in the service. And the bylaw went from actually an approach of 50% or 50% assessment and 50% usage to 100% usage. So that's to address the inequities that can happen, like in a Commonwealth pool. So everyone who is in the vicinity of the pool is paying for that. A little bit different in Victoria because of the multiple municipalities that are there, and Commonwealth, the Commonwealth pool is actually funded by the Saanich, and of course, forget how many municipalities around the Saanich area. I want to say 12, 14, 16, somewhere in there. You know, so they do have their challenge in regards to who's funding what recreation facility here. It has been addressed by the model that's in place.
Councillor Gore, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Osborne, first of all, I want to thank you and your team for the work on this. And it's been a huge undertaking. I remember you coming to us a couple of years ago, talking about the possible expansion. In the end, now it comes down to the people of Parksville and the other areas how they vote on this referendum. So we are looking at big numbers now, close to $30 million. If this expansion does go forward, how many years will it serve Oceanside before there's a need for another facility, let's say?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's based on growth that's taking place in the community. This will serve the Oceanside area for quite a few years. I can't give you exact years because it depends on the population growth going on. But when the master plan was done, it was identified it will take, I would say roughly, you know, population 75,000 is a sort of a good number. I use that cautiously as well too, because obviously you would like to have as many recreation facilities to your community as you can, but it comes at a cost. And so there's the threshold of ability to pay of communities going forward. So there may be a need down the road, and this is a real struggle with many municipalities and smaller municipalities as well, is there may be a demand, but the cost to provide an optimal level of service may be beyond the ability for people to pay. So if you are providing for 2 recreation facilities or 2 aquatic centers, there'll have to be an assessment and a review done 10, 15 years down the road, if not longer, and then determine what is that threshold of a community to then provide a higher level service.
Good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So you talked about now the contributions being based on usage. As you know, Parksville, Qualicum, we are tourist destinations. I was wondering, when you do the calculations on usage, do you take into account the non-residents who come to our area for at least 4 months of the year? Our population close to doubles with non-residents. Mm-hmm. Is that distinguished when you do your statistics, or is that just clumped together just because you're living in a resort in Parksville, now you belong to Parksville? Like, how do you differentiate that?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor's question, we do calculate where people are coming from, and we call them outside users, if you will, and that may be coming as a guest or actually coming from outside the area. So, for example, there may be people, and we know there's people from Port Alberni, Courtenay, or tourist guests or grandchildren coming through as well too. So through the survey, we actually need to identify where people are actually residing, right down to a residential address as we go forward. So we, at the pool, we do drop-in sampling, determine where those people are and where they reside. We also get lists from users of the facility, both by programs as well as your swim clubs, and break that down. So when we tabulate who is coming from the pool, we actually then extrapolate those who are not from the area to create the 100%, if you will. So we have great documentation you can look into. You can see that, you know, X, Y, and Z are coming, and so many are from the outside. But let's say if 5% are coming from the outside, those are then removed to then recalculate the overall breakdown of who is participating in that. So you'll see from our survey data, and I don't want to give you bad numbers, so I'll give an example. So for example, let's say we find out that 4% or 3.7% are coming from an area, and you extrapolate who is from the outside area, the share of it may move up to like 4% of the operational cost, because you have to spread that out.
Thank you. Just see if there's anybody else. Yeah, first, Mary. Okay. Any other question? Go ahead, Councillor Grants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you so much for the amazing presentation as always. On the slide that had the requisition by year, just didn't quite catch whether the requisition included the operating costs on that. So is because there's operating and capital. So can you clarify that?
Yeah, through the mayor to the council's question. This slide here shows as if you're operating the facility. So that's your operational costs, your wages, your energy usage, as well as the debt repayment as well too. So this is all in as if you're operating at the expanded facility and paying the debt at the same time.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if I can follow up, and can you provide a little bit more sort of understanding of the operating costs, their energy reductions that we would be realizing through the emissions reduction investment, I guess. So can you maybe delve in a little bit how the operating costs, what the increase is, maybe on a percentage basis over the current facility and what that kind of looks like?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have the percentage off your head, but
yeah, I can go to this slide, and a key component is this is the reduction of energy. So reduction in energy will see reduction in costs. We have not modeled that reduction in costs, but we have modeled reduction of energy. So I can answer that's one thing that will need to be refined. That should have a positive effect on the budget. I can't break it down by percentage though. At this moment in time, no.
okay. Yeah, I think just generally when we're looking at voters wanting to make a decision on this, obviously there's the cost to buy the car, and then there's the cost to run the car and maintain the car. And so I think maybe that's where I'm digging in a little bit to get a sense of what the cost to operate the facility will be over and above what it currently costs.
Yeah, and this is what this slide is attempting to show. So the 2024 tax requisition is what it cost last year for a resident in Parksville would be $64.83 on average. And once we're fully operating the facility, it will go up to $174.20 under the slide to give you an idea. So that's you operating the full complex.
Thank you. If I can follow up with one other unrelated question, just as we look at for clarification on the requisition by usage. So it's by area, and then the areas get the cost amortized across the number of properties in the area. So it does turn out that the areas that have a higher usage maybe, but lower number of homes in that area pay a much higher per home cost to use the same facility.
Through to the chair, through to the mayor, this is a good slide, and it also shows sort of the average requisition. So Parksville and Qualicum are very similar in uses, but different in assessment and different in population as well. Parksville has a higher population to then spread the amount paid by the city of Parksville over more property owners as well too. So that has an effect on it. So there's really a bunch of variables that provide for how does it impact that local jurisdiction.
Right. So move to Parksville to get a better bang for buck on your pool.
Thanks for the plug. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Osborne, for the presentation and all the work that you do. Joel kind of stole my thunder. Councillor Grenz kind of stole my question on operating costs. The RDN is presenting this referendum as unbiased as possible, and I think the RDN is doing a fantastic job of presenting those capital costs, operating costs, the frequently asked questions on the website, presenting as much information as possible for the public, so they have all the information they have to in front of them to make their decision. So I don't know if you wanted to expand on it at all, but I just appreciate the job that the RDN is doing to present that information to the public. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you to Councillor Wood's comments. Yeah, there is a fairly significant decision that has to be made by the community, but there is a reason why this project has got to the stage where it is at, and that is to provide additional aquatic space in a community that needs additional space. And it's been looked by this community for over 20 years. And obviously there's been various approaches to how to do that. This is the approach that's been considered. It's been tested over the years, if you will. And ultimately, there is a need for aquatic space in our communities. As I've mentioned in the past, at Qualicum Council, there is a backlog of, there's a wait list for swim lessons in our pool. That's our younger population who cannot get in to take swim lessons. We have the highest rate of drowning deaths in British Columbia here on Vancouver Island. That plays a role in that as well too. There is upstream prevention in regards to why we have aquatic centers and recreation facilities, and that is to ensure that you have a good quality of life, mental health, physical health, social health, that then leads to healthcare cost prevention down the road. So it is a responsible local government. Unfortunately, it would be nice to shift that over to the province, if you will, but you play a fairly big role in regards to healthcare and health prevention and health promotion and so forth. So there's a reason why this project's been advanced. It is something that is required or not required, is important to a community. And we do know why people come to a local community. It is based on what is there and what are the benefits to my family. And it does come at a cost. And that's what these slides show here as well too. And that's what the community will have to balance.
Thank you, Tom. I was just going to point out the fact that the aquatic centers play a huge role in rehabilitation for those that have knee and hip joint replacement surgeries. The rehab afterwards is very dependent and for good results to participate at an aquatic center. And I can tell you, after having gone through knee joint replacement with Ravensong being not available, it was just too crowded and so forth, I had to go to a private facility to get my rehab back on track type of thing. And I paid far more for 1 month at the private facility than 1 year per resident for the cost of the new expansion. So it provides huge benefits for those. And I know in our area and so far our circle of friends that there are many people that if they haven't already had knee or hip joint replacements, they're on the wait list. And it's coming, folks, but this facility will make it much easier to achieve a good rehabilitation record because with the zero entrance and so forth in the expanded room, you'll get better faster. So this is a great thing for promoting lifestyle and health wellness in our community. So I think this is going to be a great addition. Thank you so much. Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And I was going to say I rehab for my knees at Commonwealth Pool in Victoria. Excellent support. And it didn't cost me an arm and a leg. I mean, I was a citizen, so I paid my share, but it wasn't like it would be on private. I wanted to ask about the sports part. I forgot to ask this earlier. Is there any opportunities to have swim meets there? Yes, it's a big deal. Yeah. Thank you.
It's really the council's question. It is a 25-meter pool. We have what we'll call grassroots level swim meets, but the larger meets are being held by our up north from us at City of Nanaimo 50-meter pool, larger community that can support that complex. We are seeing meets there. We are a great training facility for young athletes and I'm proud to say Olympic athletes as well. The Paralympic and Olympic levels as well too. The deck space is not really conducive for crowds and so forth for swim meets. It has been done, but it is the highest need for this area is for additional lap swimming for recreational and physical aspects. And then there's a need for the accessibility side is the key component on that. As the mayor's noted on the therapeutic side as well, the lazy river is a great amenity for those in rehab, but as also as a fun aspect as well too. We hear from our community that the Ravensong Aquatic Center is a wonderful, well-run facility, but it needs a little bit of pizzazz. And with that, you could use some spray features, the lazy river, for all segments of our population. It'll be the more used.
One more question. Thank you. What I was thinking of would be smaller swim meets for younger children, not the Olympic stuff. And I know about that. And you don't need a huge area, but a few parents could be a part of that. It's kind of a lot of fun and it's great for the kids. So that's what I was thinking, because we want to promote, we want rehab for the rest of us, but we want to promote a place for young families. So thank you.
Yeah, it should, in the past, we've had kids triathlon has been a part, and there's a pool component to that. So obviously you're out on your bike and you go in. So that could come back as well too, but it's sort of speaking to that grassroots swim meet kind of setting.
And Councillor Beil, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And harking back to Councillor Gren's comment about an advantage to come to the area, I do note that there's at least one realtor in the audience who might be noticing that. But I wanted to ask, and I also, when you mentioned the fitness, the possibility down the road, I saw some nods of agreement in the audience behind you. So, you know, take that as you will. Also, I was almost dragged aside in a store quite some time ago now and informed that the pool needs to grow. This is already going back, but the other thing was that she felt it was very important that it include space that one could rent for birthday parties. So when you have the pool party, that you get a place where you can cut the cake and hand that out. So is the thought that one or both of these multi-purpose rooms would be available for rent by community members?
Fortuitous, I just put the slide back up through the councillor's questions. So on the lower right-hand side are the two multi-purpose rooms. Those would be the space that would be rented out. We have had birthday parties in the lobby. It's very confined. It's hard to celebrate 12-year-old's birthday party with a few 50, 100 people around you at the same time. So that would be one of the two rooms that you see here on the slide.
Any other questions? Saying none. Thank you very much, Mr. Osborne, for your presentation. Well done. And we look forward to getting the vote out for this Ravensong expansion. The dates are very clearly marked and we have advanced polling coming up. So please, if you're listening out there, please get out and vote. This is very important to our community. Thank you. So moving ahead now, we have two delegations today. The first delegation, we have the Parksville Downtown Business Association 2024 annual report and 2025 budget presentation by T. Cooper, the executive director, and Tammy Frankfurt to present the PDBA 2024 financial statements, the 2024 annual report and 2025 budget, and to request the 25% advance of levy funding as per bylaw number 1592. Thank you and welcome. You have 10 minutes for your presentation and looking forward to it. You've been here before, you know where the buttons are.
Thank you. And thank you for allowing us this time to present our annual report, our 2024 year-end financials, and our 2025 budget, which I believe the last two were in your package. As the mayor said, this is Tammy Frankfurt, president of Parksville Downtown, and I'm Teresa Cooper, the executive director. We'd like to start by showing our 2024 annual report video. Maybe. Oh.
Great video, by the way. I
Thank you.
just have to say, that's a great video. Well done.
It's a good summary of all the things that we did last year. There are a few things I want to point out. And for those of you who like the numbers, 94% approval of our mandate renewal last year. As you know, we are mandated on a 5-year span of time. So we were really pleased that we got such support for our renewal. Our most attended event was Happy New Year. 250 plus people were there when we dropped those balloons. We spoke with about 135 people for our Imagine Parksville downtown. We hosted events and activations in Memorial Plaza. There were over 35. We had 11 member events and workshops and 3 downtown lighting projects. An important accomplishment for Parksville downtown was the completion of our 3-year strategic plan called Laying the Foundation for Change. Our goal is to strengthen our organization as we prepare to receive the results of our Imagine Parksville Downtown Community Engagement Study, which we'll discuss in more detail in a moment. The 4 pillars of our strategic plan are build our brand, enhance member engagement, be an influential voice, and create a vibrant business culture. Last summer, we began our Imagine Parksville Downtown project. We held several focus groups, town hall meetings, one-on-one discussions to hear what the community had in mind for its downtown over the next 10 years. We're expecting our final report in April, and we're certain there will be many recommendations and suggestions on how to enhance the economic diversity of downtown. Advocacy is a key focus of most BIAs, and Parksville Downtown is no exception. In 2024, we continued to advocate on behalf of our members for parking solutions. We participated in the Master Transportation Plan, and we continue to coordinate with our community partners, including the City of Parksville. One of the messages we heard through Imagine Parksville Downtown was that the residents are very appreciative of our efforts to bring more vibrancy into downtown. As I mentioned, in 2024, we hosted over 35 events. We collaborated with the city on 3 lighting projects, and we relocated our office. So we are right next to the plaza now, which brings us a lot of visibility, but also makes it easier to just do things on a daily basis to make the plaza more full of life. In 2025, we have our strategic goals that are built around the 4 pillars of our strategic plan. The first one is building our brand, and that's truly going to come from the findings of Imagine Parksville Downtown. Once we have that, we're going to dig into it, find out how we're going to prioritize the recommendations and where we will get the funding, and then making sure that our brand aligns with those activities. In 2025, we are continuing our efforts to work more closely with our members and to align our activities with their needs. We will also continue to advocate on behalf of our members while strengthening partnerships with PQB Tourism, the Chamber, the MAC, and the City of Parksville. Fostering a vibrant business culture. This at first sounds like, oh, we're just going to make downtown livelier, but it's also making a stronger business culture. And that's what we're really focused on this year, is meeting our members' needs, reviewing our current grants. We have grants for beautification of downtown through facade improvements, and we have safety and security grants. We've not seen a really great uptake on those grants, so we're going to be taking a look at them, talking to our members and seeing where that money could be put to better use. Yeah, I think that's it for that one. Sorry. Our budget. got this in your package. I just wanted to point out that the majority of our income comes through a property tax levy on the owners in the BIA area. And we also get we don't know yet for this year, get a grant from Canada Summer Jobs. And then our operational expenses, mostly for marketing and administration, and then all the projects that we do to bring life to downtown. So in summary, we've accomplished so much in 2024, from record-breaking events to meaningful member engagement and impactful advocacy. With Imagine Parksville Downtown as our guide and our strategic plan in place, we're excited about the future we're building together. I just want to take this moment on behalf of Tammy and myself to thank the city, who've been both council and staff who've been incredibly helpful to us over the past years, and really appreciate your continuing support and collaboration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Teresa, for your presentation. It was great. Did you want to touch on, like, you're never standing still? You never do. You just, you're like that Energizer bunny, I gotta say. So lately, upon walking in downtown Parksville, I noticed that there's this new lighting on the street trees on Port Alberni. And I noticed it's a much better design. And it seems to create quite a bit more ambience, and it's an alternate tree scenario and so forth. If you want to talk about that, and you had any comments from the public now that, seeing that I know they were still working on it last week, fine tuning it. And also the fact that there is music speakers. I got to listen to Pavarotti the other day walking through Memorial Plaza. I know he wasn't behind me because I think he's passed now, but it could have been, but it was opera, and it got me attention. Yeah, it's the green. Right away, it was very enjoyable. It was just created a special atmosphere in there, and I was very appreciative to it. And just if you want to just touch on those two little features.
Sure. The lights on Alberni, all I can say is it's amazing. They were placed so well, so carefully. It's just, I walked through, I'm going to say 6:30 in the morning when the lights on Alberni, you could really see it because it was still dark. The lights on the plaza were flashing green for St. Patrick's Day, and the music was playing. And I just went, this is what it's all about. The music has only been playing for about a week. It took far longer than we anticipated. Our move to Memorial Plaza, moving the office to Memorial Plaza, allowed us to finally move forward with that, connecting the lighting system with the stereo system. And I spent all week last week building playlists. So depending the time of day, learning how. So yes, from 5 in the afternoon until 9 at night, and from 6 in the morning till 9 in the morning, it is classical music. Depending on the mood, if it's really dark and dreary, I try to put on something bright and cheery. If I'm feeling like I need a little silent space, we have some quieter music. But it's what I hope to do is every day of the week, there will be a different theme for the music. So the one that I just did that I love is Gypsy Jazz. So if you're walking through and you hear little Django Reinhardt, you'll know that I was at work there. So I think that it's all coming together. That sense of place for Memorial Plaza, we've struggled a bit, but I'm on my way actually to have a activation of the plaza where I'm just putting out everything I can think of, and kids are coming and we'll see what they do. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm hoping they'll just self-activate themselves and have fun in the plaza. Tammy, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's like what we're trying to do is so that Teresa doesn't have to be there all the time, is do stuff so that it's self-sufficient, right? So, for this week, for kids being on spring break, She's set up stuff so they can make little St. Patrick's Day bracelets and decorate cookies. The idea also with the music and that is so that maybe during the summer especially, people can go sit and on the benches and have their lunch and listen to some nice music and so forth. Plus, if you keep it busy, people will use it appropriately.
Right. And
Right.
thank you for that.
And it's been great with the office being right there. I mean, the first week, Teresa did say to me, I'm not sure how I'm going to get some work done. Everybody keeps stopping in to see me. So, but it's been great because she's not by herself. But
That's a good thing.
yeah,
Yeah, good thing. I think I missed a part of the playlist when AC/DC and Led Zeppelin are playing. I'm not sure what time of day that is.
Yeah, I'm
that's-
not sure what time of day that is either.
Okay, maybe stick to
5 o'clock.
riding in my vehicle, maybe. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the liaison, as you both know, and we meet at 7:30 in the morning when we have our meetings. And they're there enthusiastically with the board. And what you both do, I mean, it's, I've been aware of these things coming up, but it's the enthusiasm and the direction and the focus about what to get done. I will say, when I go shopping, and I shop local, I always have shopped local, I ask the owners of the companies, because usually it's the owners that are there, generally in the small businesses. And I talk about what they're doing downtown here, and they appreciate everything that's being done, those business owners. And I wanted you to know this, and it needs to be on the record, because this is a big deal for Parksville's change, evolving for us, all of us, for our community. And so I'm very excited about that. But thanks again for what you both do and for all your meandering around, Teresa. It shows in the video, but it's wonderful. Thank you very much. I just thought I'd pass that on. Thank you.
You're very welcome. One thing I just want to say on that, and it's true, because that's where this year it was very exciting that for the first time ever, we have a completely full board where we had people coming to us. So we're 12, that's all we can do. And so we're a complete full board. So we've got some new energy and total different diversification from all avenues. So I'm excited for this year.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Gore, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a comment that you are a valued partner in creating vibrancy in downtown. I wasn't able to attend your AGM, my regrets. But what you're doing is very important, not just for the businesses, but to the brand of Parksville itself. It creates vibrancy, and it also makes Parksville more livable, that people enjoy living downtown. People want to come and visit downtown and shop downtown. So thank you again for all the work. Appreciate it.
Councillor Beil, go ahead.
I'd just like to say thank you and also congratulations on all your achievements this past year, and looking forward to all that's going to happen in this year. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Great. Seeing no further questions, let's get down to the business letter, folks. Just stay here, ladies, while we get down to here. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation that the Parksville Downtown Business Association 2024 annual report and financial statements be received? Part 2, that the Parksville Downtown Business Association 2025 budget be approved. And part 3, that staff be authorized to advance 25% of the levy funding to the Parksville Downtown Business Association as per Downtown Business Improvement Area Establishment Bylaw 2024 number 1592. Looking for a mover or seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Gore. All those in favor? That carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, the next delegation we have today is from the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce Visitor Information Center report to present an evaluation of the past year's activities and present the next year's programs and budgets to council before March 31st, 2025, in accordance with the terms of the fee-for-service agreement. Welcome, Megan. I truly like your color of your outfit today. It's very striking. Thank you. Good job. Megan, go ahead. You have 10 minutes. Yeah, welcome.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Mayor O'Brien, esteemed members of council and city staff. My name is Megan Walker, as you said, and I'm here representing the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce as the president of the board of directors. The remainder of the board sends their apologies. Unfortunately, they all have jobs that require them to show up physically in business hours, so they're not able to attend today. So as the official visitor information center for our city, we play a vital role in welcoming visitors, supporting local businesses, and contributing to Parksville's economy. I'm pleased to provide a brief overview of activities for 2024, as well as our plans for 2025 and beyond. So for 2024, our activities were our Visitor Information Center continues to provide accurate, up-to-date information, helping tourists explore Parksville and encouraging longer stays that benefit local businesses. Research does show that the majority of visitors on Vancouver Island travel by private vehicle, meaning they pass through Parksville often. So we are refining our operating hours and services, and we aim to increase engagement by providing greater value to those travelers that pass through our town. In 2024, we welcomed 3,806 visitor parties to our visitor center. While this is a decrease from 2023, industry trends suggest that domestic travel is increasing due to international tensions. We anticipate a positive shift in visitor numbers for 2025. Additionally, the Summer by the Sea Street Market, try and say that, a lot of S's, has been a major success, and our on-site visitor information center booth at the market allowed us to engage with hundreds of visitors each week. Unfortunately, we were not counting those visitors in our visitor numbers for 2024, which is an oversight that we will correct in 2025. So there were hundreds of visitors each of the 13 weeks. That would add a significant number of visitors onto that number if we had been tracking them. And then we also want to enhance our service capabilities and extend our hours by increasing our volunteer roster. So look forward to that throughout the coming year. So our future goals, as we look ahead to 2025 and beyond, our key priorities align with Parksville's strategic tourism goals and the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Master Plan. So our focus areas include expanding our operating hours and accessibility. So thank you to the fee-for-service agreement with the City of Parksville, as well as Destination BC. The Visitor Information Center is open 24 hours a week in the off-season, with hours increasing during peak tourism season and months. So during that busy season, our team will be supplemented hopefully by summer students hired through the Canada Summer Jobs Program and also volunteer roster. So we are going to also do a pop-up visitor information service at the Summer by the Sea Market and any other events that we see we could take advantage of. And again, we will start to track those numbers as part of our visitor services. So that will allow us to meet visitors where they are. So we'll increase our impact and provide real-time information to enhance their experience in visiting our beautiful city of Parksville. We also are looking forward to strengthening our collaboration with Indigenous organizations locally, ensuring that a local Indigenous tourism experience is supported and promoted. That's part of the Tourism Master Plan and as part of our planning as well. So look for an announcement about some upcoming changes at the Visitor Center with that. And additionally, we'll work closely, obviously, with the city and local businesses to enhance tourism initiatives that reflect the community's cultural and environmental values and foster meaningful visitor experiences. So the Parksville Visitor Information Center remains committed to its role as a key tourism resource, business supporter, and community partner. We're confident that our expanded services focus on mobile engagement and alignment with regional tourism strategies will ensure long-term benefits for Parksville's visitors, businesses, and residents alike. So on behalf of the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce, we thank you for your continued support and collaboration. And we value the opportunity to work together to elevate Parksville's tourism sector, and looking forward to another successful year. I welcome any questions you have.
Thanks very much, Megan. We certainly appreciate the collaboration efforts that we've been able to maintain with the Chamber of Commerce, and I appreciate your leadership,
Yeah, thank
you
you.
know, in making sure that this was achievable. We had some honest dialogues regarding visitor information center opening hours and so forth. I think we came to a realistic conclusion type of thing, and thanks for the participation in that. I think it's going to be another great year in Parksville, and with your help, we'll be able to track those individuals that are visiting our fair city, as well as providing them the services that they need. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
And Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the liaison for the museum, which is right next door to the visitor center.
Mhm.
And thank you, Megan, for what you're doing here.
Yeah.
I reiterate, support the mayor with what he just said, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I was thinking on my mind, there's 6,000 visitors came to the museum last year, just over 6,000 a bit. And if there was some sort of communication with the staff when they first opened, you know, just a thought, I'll mention it at my board meeting,
Mhm.
because there's summer staff.
Mhm.
If they communicate and support each other, that would be a big benefit.
Yeah, I would love
And
that.
yes, I think so. And they're parked there. So that's just a thought. I'm just sharing that with you
I appreciate
for
it.
this time, you
Yeah.
know, and I'll reiterate at the next board meeting. So thanks a lot, Megan.
Yeah, we'll look
Okay.
forward to collaborating with them
Yeah,
for
for
sure. We
sure.
share a parking lot, so.
Exactly. Well, I think 6,000 people went to the museum. There is no numbers
Yeah.
on that. So that would be pretty good to help. the
Well,
visitor center.
our 3,800 is 3,800 parties, not people. So
Right.
some of
No,
those
it's
groups are
people.
larger than one person,
course, yeah.
obviously, as well.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank
yeah.
you very much.
Thank
That's
you.
Great.
Great, thank you. Councillor Beil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to our delegation. Hello, Megan, and thank you very much for the presentation today. And yeah, I think and hope and look forward to supporting a really great year for the chamber.
Thank you.
Also thrilled to learn that the chamber will be operating the Summer by the Sea Market on Canada Day, which does happen to be on the Tuesday. So really nice to have that addition to possible events for visitors and residents to take advantage of. And hopefully that will be positive for the chamber as well. I also know, well, as you know, I attended the most recent meeting of the chamber, and that I understand that there are openings on the chamber board. So I am looking past you towards Tammy. Tammy, if you have some extra people who are interested well, no, but truthfully, it is really cool to have that experience, that there may be people, business, because there is obviously that overlap and synergy that happens both with the downtown and then the larger business community. So if you have any extras, you might want to get in touch with Megan, and both would benefit. So like I say, I'm really looking forward to a good year with the chamber. I have taken a few notes. Similarly to what Councillor Martin has said, I also see some real possibilities for working together, both with the museum, but also perhaps with the Arts Council, and some other possibilities that could be win-win-win, triple win situations, and would add to that wonderful Parksville feeling that we get here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are actively recruiting for our board right now. We do have several vacancies, 6 in fact. So we have opened applications. If anyone would like to join the board, we'd be very pleased to have them. Obviously here today to discuss the visitor center stuff, but there is actually a lot of exciting stuff coming chamber-wise that I'm happy to discuss at another time. But we will have some great news upcoming. We have lots of great plans for the year. So I'm looking forward to being able to announce that. Some to do with Summer by the Sea Market, obviously our interactions with the local business communities. But we absolutely would value having board members from various organizations. We previously had someone from the SOS. We would love to have someone from MAC. I'd love to have someone from the PDBA, and as well as individual business owners. So really encourage people to get involved in their local community. Obviously, this is a great way to contribute.
Thank you, Megan. That's Summer by the Sea Market on the Canada Day. That's going to be very happening.
It
You
is.
know, because that just kind of winds up in the evening type of thing. It's very happening. You have
Yeah.
so much going on there. It's going to be a great day. A comment that was passed on by one of our constituents here anyways was saying that the chamber does such a great job on the Tuesday night markets and so forth. Have they ever considered expanding and going into a farmer style market, say on a Saturday or Sunday, separately, totally separate, where the focus is on growing local and eating local? It is more important now than ever with what's happening down south. And you see a huge amount of uptake in local suppliers supplying a lot of our grocery and produce stores, and the residents and consumers are buying into this, buying local in huge numbers like we've never seen before. I've spoken to some merchants and they say the transition has been just overnight.
Yeah.
And so all that I'm saying is that I know that we have a lot of agritourism, you know, going on in the area, a lot of the hobby farms and so forth that are basically selling as much as they can produce. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity here because you have the expertise, you know how to set up booths and so forth. It was just an option. Somebody said it'd be so nice if we could have a weekly farmer market. And I'm not suggesting all year round. I'm just suggesting like as a growing season effort. It's just a thought that was thrown to me.
Yeah, we could certainly look at that, and we do definitely have the skill set within the chamber team. I think a couple of things we would want to be cautious about is not to be seen to be competing with our grocery members, as well as the Qualicum Farmers Market is all year round and it's absolutely huge. So would we be drawing away from that market, as well as there's an Arrington Farmers Market during the growing season as well? And as we are Parksville and District Chamber, we want to be careful not to sort of pull away from other successful markets that are already in place. If we were going on a similar day, we would probably be competing with those. But we have discussed various other types of markets, and we did do a little bit of a pilot project last year with a fall market that was held at the museum grounds, which was quite fun. And I'd love to continue that as sort of an extension of the Tuesday market into the fall. And that could definitely have an aspect of some local growers as well. So all ideas are definitely on the table for the coming year.
Yeah, and you're one at your visitor information center. I attended that as well. And it was busy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and I know the people were just walking away with bags of produce.
Yeah.
And well, they're actually paying for it. Then they walk
Buying bags of produce.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Grab and go.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Just consideration, you know, as you say, you've got the expertise in place anyways, but don't want to step on anybody's toes. I get that fully, but recognizing that Parksville and South, you know, carries off into Nanaimo and River's Edge and those type of areas that, you know, would really like to have something in Parksville.
They're not necessarily driving to Qualicum, but some of them are, but
exactly.
But maybe this would be an attraction for them.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we want to save on carbon emissions, right? That's what we're all about. Yeah. Thanks, Megan. Thank you
My
very much.
pleasure.
Yeah. No further questions, Council?
Thanks.
I'm just going to, you just get a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce on visitor center activities be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wood, second by Councillor Grems. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. So I'm going to adjourn for a comfort break. Right now it's 2:24. If we can reconvene at 2:30. Thank you. Welcome, council. We'll reconvene now if we may, please. Thank you. And next on our agenda is reports. We have one report on the agenda from the Director of Finance regarding the non-statutory reserves and surplus funds establishment bylaw. Ms. Holmes, you were just going to do your quick presentation on that, not a presentation, just introduction. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I really just wanted to say this is the next step in a process that we started last fall with the introduction and council's approval of the reserves and surplus policy. So the next step was actually to create the reserves that amounts can be transferred into. As you know, in the financial plan, there have been amounts transferred to capital reserves and things like this, but this is kind of broadening the scope of that reserve structure and how is outlined in the policy. So pretty straightforward, and it's all in your report, but I did want to say this is next step and there's more to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jetta. And I have to say, like, going through the background information, and it seems like a long time ago that we started this, folks, you know, with this reserve policy, and it's definitely gone to the next level, a level that I'm very comfortable with. And thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and then laying it out how we can apply it across all services and operating costs and so forth. It's very well laid out in all of your schedules, and helps out with our asset management and planning for the future. The reserve policy is the way to go, especially with the unexpected the overburdening of all the increases we have in operational costs, as well as the new construction that happens on everything. So the reserves are going to put us in a much better position to give us that cushion, and I look forward to having them implemented, and you having the job of balancing all of these, and because there's a lot of different areas that you're going into. So I thank you very much for very wise financial planning. Thank you. Council, you've all have the reserve policies in your background information that you've all seen. Do I have a mover or second for the recommendation as noted? Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Grenz. Any questions or discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Grenz. You move, so you get.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I do have just maybe not really a question about the policy per se, but just to highlight maybe relative to the conversation we had earlier about the pool, is that it was first identified in the master plan in 2006. And what we've done at this council, if I'm not mistaken, is recognize that we have some needs coming down the pike to spend money on protective services, for example. And so we've started setting aside money today for that future cost, and that's what this reserve policy does. And I don't believe that same thing was done in 2006 for the pool in the same way. And so that's and here we are, you know, almost 20 years later. If some money had been set aside during that time, it would have been able to grow and be a good seed for the pool that we're now maybe moving forward with.
Good point. Thank you. Councillor Gore.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification through you, Mayor, to Jetta. Page 31 of the agenda, in their funding source for the protective services, I thought there would be a percentage of property taxes included in that. Can you clarify that, column 3, please?
Yes, thank you for the question through the Mayor to Councillor Gore. That's a great point. That is something that subsequent to the policy, council has adopted that 0.2%. So I think what we could do is add it here, but it can also just be in addition to what's noted here as part of the financial planning process. And right now, our financial planning process has those assumed percentages to capital reserves. And that's one of them where it's 0.2%. I think if we put 0.2% in here, and then all of a sudden next year council wants to move to 1% and or change that, it's maybe easier to leave this more general and just look at the optional ones for council being, do we want to look at the excess that was left in a year of costs, and then looking at calculated amounts. And I think that's what may drive the percentage. is for me to provide to council analysis that says, here's our estimated facility cost or increase expected, and provide you with some calculations on what my recommendation would be as to a percentage to put towards that. But great point. It could be in here specifically if we wanted something that was more tied to that.
Oh,
Yes, and I was going to point out as well that especially for the fire services, we have amenity contributions that in past historically have contributed considerably to the reserve fund for the fire department as a non-protective services in general. And the fire services have shown up often. Anyways, follow up?
yeah, no, yeah, just kind of following up on that. Thank you. So something similar to what we have in number 2 for the capital reserves, that we could have percentage of property taxes or other, rather than specifying the 0.2, like you mentioned. I think that gives some clarity to what the direction has been from this council on that.
Yeah, well, if council would like, we could certainly amend it and approve the bylaw or give readings to the bylaw as amended if we want to just add that in that section.
I would like to move that. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think. Do you want to do that at this time, Jetta, or when we do the financial plan
We're adopting the bylaw today.
Well, I think if council would like to include it as part of the bylaw, we could do it today and just provide for that amendment within the motion and give 3 readings to the bylaw as amended, and we can add the percentage of property taxes as determined by council during financial planning processes. All of these are still at the discretion of council because it's as funds are available. For example, in a scenario like we're looking at right now, where perhaps the world is changing a little bit, council may wish to withhold some of the reserve contributions in any one year just to provide that extra stability. So by adding percentage of property taxes, as is noted in a couple of the capital reserve ones, doesn't necessarily tie you to that specifically within the financial planning process. The financial planning process would allow you to increase or decrease that percentage.
right? I think it's a good idea. But I think I'd like to hear from Jetta, like options on how we can make that happen and what would be, and have a bit more time for a fulsome discussion on that. But you say we can do that anytime. So can that be done when we do our financial plan process? Yeah, in April, May.
So if you look on page 32 under general fund capital reserve, that's 2A. It says allocations in financial plan bracket percentage of property taxes or other. We could add something like that, same as page 32, 2A, to the protective services reserves, if council wanted to also add that as a funding source.
I'm not sure everybody has that in front of them, Jetta. I'm just wondering. Councillor Gore, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Jetta. The reason I brought that up is it was a council resolution to have about 0.2% of property taxes allocated towards this protective services reserve. Since we are already collecting taxes from people based on this, why not have this in the bylaw itself to make sure? And if you recommend that it's okay for us, we are still in the green, not having that in the bylaw, we can still collect that percentage. Then I'm okay with leaving it open as is. But I would like it to be personally part of the bylaw if we are collecting that 0.2%. And then we are not obligated to tap into the property taxes is what you're saying, correct? It just gives us another funding source that, yes, property taxes is also another source which came from this council's resolution previously.
Through the mayor, yes. I think you've got flexibility either way. This is not a restrictive list of sources. It's some sources that council may want to consider and provide examples of where funding might come from. So I think it's good either way. It's completely at council's discretion if you want to list it here. Why I had left it with respect to the capital reserves is we've been doing that for a number of years now. The protective services one was relatively new and kind of all about these new conversations. I didn't want to kind of tie that as closely, but it could go either way, completely at council's discretion.
Leave it as you're okay with that, just to leave it as it is for now, because it's doing exactly what you're wanting it to anyways. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I feel. Why amend it? Because you're already doing what I think Councillor Gore was suggesting.
Right. If I could add, for Mayor and Council, given this is a relatively new process for Parksville and we're kind of putting the structures and the stepping stones in place to get to a place where we're having a much more rigorous process around the allocation of our surplus, I expect to revisit this in a year just to say, okay, how are we doing here? And are you comfortable with how the process is going, or do we need to tweak it? If at that point, council is getting comfortable with the allocation of surplus and reserves, we'll likely update this to be a more comprehensive list, or perhaps to provide some more clarity around that process. Because the next step after we put the bylaw in place is actually to bring you the numbers, right? And to say, here's what I recommend out of current year 2024 surplus we should allocate. And then we've already talked about taking some of that unrestricted reserve and starting to populate some of these amounts to provide that flexibility and sustainable financing, as you've already made reference to, in those reserves. And when we go to look at the amended financial plan in a month, I think our whole world has changed a little bit with events and presidential elections down south, that, okay, where are we going to put the contingency? Are we going to leave it in our reserves, or are we actually going to put it into the financial plan? And that's a decision that a lot of municipalities are facing, is do you actually tax for that additional amount of contingency because costs are very unpredictable right now? Or do we say, we have some reserves and that'll be the cushion, and it'll come back to council if we have amounts that are coming in extraordinarily higher than what's in the financial plan? And I feel comfortable as we're building out this structure that leaves council with some decisions around that to say, yes, we can pull it out of that financial sustainability reserve or a stabilization reserve or other amounts if we still want to go ahead with it. So I think that this kind of scenario is what this reserve structure is all about, is to provide council with some choices on how much do we tax. I know that there's a lot of municipalities are just saying, okay, capital contingency on projects is moving from 10% to 30%. Well, that can be a very significant number. So I think this kind of structure allows for council to have some options, say. It doesn't necessarily dictate one way or another, but it does give you some options. So what I would say to everyone, just with respect to the details of the bylaw, is that we will certainly revisit it in a year or so, just because it's a new process.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I appreciate the fact that we have a very expanded reserve policy in place right now. But then we have to get that into the bank, and then council can look at that to say, now, how did that affect any of our capital expenditures that came up? Were we underfunded, overfunded, or because we're, very cognizant of the fact that tax increases have to be carefully considered with many things in mind. And this expanded reserve policy takes a lot of that, it gives us a lot more comfort anyways to be ready for sometimes the unexpected. So I appreciate that. I would only ask at this time, Jetta, adding an amenity service reserve fund. What is the process for that? Say we want to, like save the whales or whatever it is, but we want to create something. In the past, as we know, the fire department has always been the first on the list anyways for that. What would be the process of creating another reserve fund, or just creating a new reserve fund? What would that process be? Is that through finance or is that through planning?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I guess the answer is kind of twofold. One is we currently receive contributions often to the fire hall through our development process. There hasn't been a policy in Parksville to actually take those funds and allocate them to a specific reserve. So what we will be bringing to council as part of the protective services reserve is this amount was directed towards the fire department. Does council wish to keep that in general revenue, or will we put it to a specific reserve towards the fire department? The flip side of that is also that this year, as you may recall, there's legislation in the works related to updating our DCC bylaw, and there also being the potential of an ACC bylaw, which is the amenity contributions. And we're about to undertake looking at those and we'll be bringing more information back to council. But in that case, that ACC bylaw, if council decides to introduce one, would be a separate statutory reserve. And what we've done is made this bylaw the non-statutory ones. And then we have separate bylaws for the statutory ones, just because I think they're subject to change more often with provincial legislation. So I thought maybe it was easier to leave the non-statutory ones that are completely in council's discretion in one bylaw and leave the others outside in their own bylaws. So there's more information coming on that, but we will bring to you as part of the next step of this is what are the amounts that has been directed to the fire hall over the years, and council can decide whether you want to redirect that. I think what's important to know is that typically in the past, new fire apparatus has been funded out of general revenue. So in theory, we've already taken that and allocated it, but there's probably a number of years since the last apparatus where we could look specifically at those amounts and consider allocating them directly.
That's exactly, that seems reasonable. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy with that. Thank you. Any other questions for Jetta? Councillor Gore, go ahead.
Thank you. Jenna, more questions your way.
Sure.
It's last page 35. If you can, as you know, I've always asked you some questions about the unrestricted surplus. I want to go back to that again. You mentioned the limit or the best practice is to have about 6 months of operational expenditures and into the unrestricted surplus. I was wondering if in this bylaw, we create a sort of a limit plus add, I don't know, inflation to it. And any additional surpluses can go back to, let's say, our capital asset reserves. So we are not taxing people that year for the additional 0.5%. Trying to kind of offset that additional tax burden. If we, I know you touched on this previously when you were talking about using the unrestricted surplus. So you think it's appropriate for us to have something of that kind of language in the bylaw about the unrestricted surplus, that year after year, if we have more money than what we need, we would put those extra monies into those capital reserves. So we are not taxing that year for the additional 0.5% for the capital reserves. What do you think of that suggestion?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Gore. It's an interesting suggestion. What I would say is that council always has the discretion to fund those types of things in different ways. So every year when we go to look at the financial plan or the amended financial plan, is council can decide to pull from one of these reserves to fund a particular amount. I think it's important to continue with the process of continuing to add the 0.5%. But then maybe you pull in the funding from the reserve rather than remove the 0.5%. It just changes the math a little bit and it continues to allow that building and the benefit of having the interest on it. That said, what I'm hearing, and we have a few different forums in our professional municipal groups with respect to handling kind of what's happening in our economy in North America, especially right now. And what I'm seeing a lot of them do is changing their recommendation on their unrestricted surplus to move it to the high end. So if we say that the best practice is 6 months to 12 months, some are saying, I think it ought to be 9 to 18, just to give us that flexibility because we're not sure what's going to happen. As well as many people saying that they're glad they have those financial stabilization reserves, because if council were to determine within the community that, say we had an auto mill or a factory and our community was going to be hit very hard such that you really didn't want to be increasing taxes, you know, that there just isn't the affordability factor, is that then you can pull from those financial stabilization reserves in a year like that, right? Where other years where things are going great and the economy's booming, then maybe council decides to add back into that financial stabilization reserve. So council always has that flexibility and discretion within the financial planning process. The bylaw is trying to leave as much wiggle room and leave as much discretion for council as possible.
You good with that? Yeah.
Thank you, Jetta. I'm not a financial expert, and I really appreciate when I hear good financial advice. So thank you for that. The reason I bring it up again, like I said, was we looked at the pool now. Let's say if the referendum does go ahead, we are looking at, again, a substantial increase in taxes for property owners in Parksville. Whether it's the population threshold for the RCMP, we are looking at another increase so there are a lot of unknowns, but there are some knowns that will likely happen. Our job at this council is financial prudence, but also the generational equity in terms of taxation as well. So I struggle sometimes of just putting too much money into the reserves. So I was coming from a point where perhaps some years we could give people that break of taking the monies from the unrestricted surplus and putting that money into our statutory reserves. So yeah, thank you. But I guess this can be debated again at the financial planning processes. It's good that we have that option in front of us. Thank you.
If I could just add one more comment with respect to Councillor Gore's comments, is that, as you recall, one of the items for Finance's work plan this year is to bring you back some recommended amounts and reserve contributions around specifically our asset management program. So not talking about the operational or the unrestricted reserves, but what should we be putting aside towards capital asset replacement and renewal. With that will come options, and really looking at that generational equity piece is, do we want to have enough that in the replacement 50 years from now, we have 100% of the estimated replacement cost? Or do we want it to be 50% and we're going to look for current residents at that time, as well as some grants fund the other half? So there's a whole bunch of assumptions there. All I would like to see council do is to add some rigor to the analysis around that, such that we're consciously putting an amount in that can be afforded by the community and that makes sense, so that when we come to the Ravensong type projects, that there's an amount there that provides the council of the day with some options based on some parameters that you've laid out as to what percentage of future replacement costs current taxpayers are going to bear. And that's a discussion we're going to have later in the year when we're bringing back some of that analysis. We're just finishing up the master transportation plan. So we have those 4 master plans to bring together that is going to then lay out in a better way that long-term capital plan. And that's what's going to drive the decisions around transfers to reserves for capital specifically.
Right. And to be clear, with those assets, like the capital management planning, all centering around like the master transportation plans, the urban tree strategies and so forth, staff always comes back with us to funding. And if some of that funding comes from, as you say, the surplus, then the staff will recommend that you have this amount of that can be used and can be transferred over into that fund. And they have in the past, and I know we have that, but they usually come up with other funding pockets that is more appropriate to whether it's like putting in sidewalks or putting in a memorial plaza or something like that, that they say they have identified as where the funding is going to come from, which further leaves the accumulated surplus the ability to continue to grow and provide that contingency or that cushion that we need that may be getting larger. So I appreciate having that amount. I don't seem like a lot, but I think in these times we need that cushion, but continue to rely on staff to provide the funding stream of where anything comes up that's going to come out of the transportation master plan, so to speak. So thank you for that. Any further questions on this one? Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sitting here, and thank you, Jetta, listening to what you're saying here about the future. And I was raised in West Vancouver, where I was going to council meetings then, see the taxes, how the taxes were, because our taxes were high. And we're trying to see how we could, make sure it was not too high. My approach was, I don't want people to have to leave the community they were raised in because of the taxes. And that was how I was feeling at the time. There was a gentleman that came up in this meeting I was at, and he was a senior, and he said, we are fixed incomes here and we have to be very careful. And he was being, he was probably 2 generations older than me. And I was like, you know, what about the children, you know? And so I'm just saying it's a balance, okay? And I appreciate how your wisdom and how we share this and how we have to keep thinking about the people who have fixed incomes here. Because that is a fair amount number of our society. So what's the percentage? I don't know. Do you know the percentage, Mr. Mayor, of our fixed income people?
Our demographics?
Yeah.
I know it's changing. According to our planning department, it's changing considerably because we're creating more, say, rental units that are 2 and 3 bedroom, so available for families and so forth. And so that is changing rapidly with the amount of, you can just look at the amount of 2 and 3 bedroom places that are being built in the city of Parksville right now, and you know who's taking that up. So it is changing, but it's a long process. But we continue to have the influx of the individuals that are selling out from their Victoria or Vancouver or Calgary homes and retiring to Parksville and bringing those income with them to buy the larger homes, the average $1 million homes. So that continues to happen, and that will continue. It's a balance, and it's the only way that we can try and manage that balance is by making sure that we have a full range, a variety of housing options available for people, and then that demographic changes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I was just wanting to know about the percentage of seniors that are here that we are on fixed incomes. Do we know that? About 30? Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. And it probably, even though those people come from other areas that have money to pay $1 million, they still on fixed incomes because I hear about it every day where I live. So it's quite fun, quite comical, really. Strata fees and the cost of everything. And it's very much.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's great. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation? Did we do that? We just carried on talking. We went into committee of the whole. We didn't know it. Thank you. So we have another motion though for bylaws.
All in favor. But not the third part. The third step.
It's been a couple of days we've been talking about it, so. All those in favor? There we go. Officially passed. Thank you. Okay, bylaws, we have 3 readings. Regarding the non-statutory reserves and surplus funds established by law 2025 number 1596 to establish non-statutory reserves and surplus funds. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Beil, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Okay, we have. Perfect. We have a notice of motion that I'm allowing to speak today without regard for notice because it's time sensitive. And Councillor Gore, if you would like to introduce your notice of motion at this time, I think it would be appropriate that we have a discussion tonight so we can take care of things.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for accommodating this last minute request. As you mentioned, it's time sensitive. That's why it was brought forth this morning. I'll read out the motion that Councillor Gore be granted a leave of absence from council to the extent necessary to facilitate his public service as a reservist with the Canadian Air Force from June 2025 to December 2025 in accordance with section 125 of the community charter. I'll look for a seconder, then I can.
For a seconder by Councillor Wood. Go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As members of council are aware, I serve Parksville at this table, but I also serve Canada as a reservist with the Air Force. I have the opportunity to serve on a deployment with the Air Force. And the deployment starts somewhere end of June to early July. It will be likely 6 months. I can tell you outside this about more details about this operation. But again, there's a lot of checks in the box that need to happen before I finally get on a plane to deploy. And this is one of the checks that I need. Very likely this is going to happen, but there's odd chances that you will pass this resolution and I may still end up at this desk because there's a lot of steps that need to be followed before deployment can actually happen. So this is required from my chain of command that I get this leave from council. But my full intent is again to be available to contribute to the council meetings, attending virtually when I'm able to. So, and I'll ask staff for clarification on this, if that needs to be included in the resolution, or will I be just attending when I'm able to attend? Is kind of like understood. But
I think at this time we have to assume that you are unable to attend.
Right.
You're at a remote post that is so remote. I won't give away anything here, but it's a remote post that may not have access to it, so forth. So we have to decide based on the fact that you, for 6 months, you're basically a leave of absence.
Yeah.
And with the knowledge that if you had the opportunity, perhaps you could occasionally get in when, all of the stars are aligned and so forth. But I think we have to assume that you will not be participating, but the fact that you're not participating in the council meetings doesn't fall into the other charter that says if you miss 3 in a row that you have to resign your councillorship. So I think it's important anyways that we identify this. I'm unclear as to the terms and conditions. What happens about this? Do you stay as a paid or unpaid council member? I have to check with that with our CAO, who's not here now, and I want to work out those details. But as far as the community charter goes, it's up to council to decide whether we can lose a council member for 6 months. Because recognize that it also puts an additional burden on all the rest of you as well, and our community anyways, because if we're missing a council member, we are a council of 7. And so that we all have our responsibilities that we do on this type of thing. So recognize that as well. I fully appreciate though the issue that we have here for the deployment for the reservist here. And I think it's very important that he achieves those means if we can definitely accommodate it without losing his council position in order to do so. So I am definitely in favor of allowing this leave to happen. As far as the rest of the details, we can work that later, but I think it's fair that we grant this at this particular time so that Councillor Gore can make his necessary commitment to his CO to make sure that he is available and he has approval from the city of Parksville at this point. So I think that that's fair. Is there any other questions that you have for, it's, as I say, it's based on the community charter that we have the option. So go ahead, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously I haven't had time to do a poll of the community, but I'm quite sure the community would back us up in supporting Councillor.
Sure. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with Councillor Wood that I think constituents that I am acquainted with would be supportive too. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, we have to realize that when we run for council, it's a very difficult decision that we all have to consider when we run. We know the terms of reference, that we know roughly what the hours are going to be, as well as the time limit. We're here for a 4-year term. It's like a contract we serve. So in order to make this happen, we have to consider it. Some others leave council for different reasons, and it's unfortunate because it triggers a by-election, which is very costly to the municipality, to our taxpayers. Again, they're paying for another by-election for a council member that is unable to fulfill their terms of contract. So this is not that, because this is definitely something we're giving leave without having to resign his post as city council. So I think that's a fair comment to make from council here. Taxpayers are still getting their value. How it works out with the pay and so forth, we'll work that out with the details, but right now we need to give that commitment. Hi, go ahead, Councillor Beil. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I would certainly like to add my support for this request. And I appreciate it that it does say as well, to the extent necessary. I understand that the full 6 months might be necessary, but I also think we're very fortunate in this day and age that there's the opportunity for people to participate virtually where that's available, both around this table and receive information digitally. So that's also great. Communicate with our CAO as needed, with senior staff as needed, and also most often with groups for whom we have liaison appointments. I know that on occasion I Zoom into a meeting that I have, and also there are others where I'm there in person, and one that only meets virtually. I am also as I mentioned to someone earlier, that, you know, in the event that Councillor Gore is not able to attend, let's say an Access Oceanside or perhaps Beach Fest, that I know I would certainly be happy and willing to assist as needed, and perhaps other council members as well. And I also want to thank Councillor Gore for the service that he provides to our country in the position as a reservist with the Air Force. So thank you for that.
Councillor Grants, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I'll just echo the thanks for the service to our country, especially with the moment we're in. But I'm supportive of the motion. But we will need to work out some things like, I don't know whether quorum is affected by this, whether we can reduce the numbers required for quorum, and sort of whatever possible things that might come out of that, because today we're missing someone already. And so I just wonder how that might affect things. But other than that, I definitely support this.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Gore. And we were hoping to have this conversation once our CAO returns, because she can provide lots of options for us and so forth, but she'll be back soon. And we'll have that discussion. But as far as granting the leave, I think is important today. Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor of granting leave? Thank you. Good discussion. Thank you. We have another notice of motion for the next meeting, I understand. Are you still want to place that at this time? Councillor Beil, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had intended to bring forth a notice of motion to allow another councillor, in this case, Councillor Gore, to attend the FCM, which is coming up later this year. However, in further conversation with Councillor Gore, understanding that the cost would come from contingency fund, he has requested that I not move ahead with that due to that fact. So with respect, then I will not put forward this notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Beil. Okay, thank you. Moving on, I think we're probably going to get into some of those liaison reports here. Yeah, here we are. We'll move to liaison reports. Let's go, Councillor Beil. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I recently attended virtually the ELCO, which is the Early Learning Childcare Oceanside group. And they're continuing at the present. There is a current project undertaking to gather data on childcare offerings, including the range of childcare that is provided in the Oceanside area, not only Parksville, but also the challenges and any recommendations that come from that. And that's been going quite well. And part of this is obviously to really understand what the childcare situation is in the area, but also with the goal to work towards understanding what is needed for recruitment and retention of childcare workers, because people need to have, hopefully, qualified childcare providers, have ECE diplomas, and and the lack of qualified staff is often an obstacle to increasing good quality childcare in the area. There are existing subsidies and many parents make use of these, and the word will be coming soon as to whether or not a local provider will be receiving the $10 a day status through the provincial government. So that word is not quite out, but I understand that it will be coming very, very soon. And regardless of whether there's a $10 a day designation or if there's subsidy provided through other means, one thing that has become very evident is that there is considerable administrative follow-up for providers with these subsidies. And that is really daunting for many people. And I don't know if people around this table recall that I think it was last year that the RDN brought forth a proposal, a resolution that did go on to AVICC and to UBCM to request that the provincial government provide some support to assist, some more centralized support to assist childcare providers with applications and with the reporting requirements that go with all of this. So I just bring this up because I don't think that's happened yet. It may or may not be on the radar, but I think it's something to be aware of and something that may need to be revisited in the near future. Also, one other thing that did come up in the meeting was a mention that the proposed closure of the commons in Qualicum Beach, as well as the Craig Street commons here, that could have a severe impact on childcare services in the area, because each of those buildings provide, whether it be a specialized school or some childcare or preschool spaces. So it was shared at the meeting. May I move on to Matt? Any questions or about the childcare situation? No? Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, Councillor Beil, do you know if we have any $10 day childcare in the region? Yeah.
It came up that I know that there had been at least one application for that last year, and none of the providers in our area received that. I understand that there has been other applications for this time coming out, and both our council as well as ELCO wrote a letter of support for having some $10 a day. And again, the word as to whether or not someone is successful should be out very, very soon. And also there's another, I forget what the term would be, but there will be another date when there's a release of further $10 a day. I think it's at the end of April, but I think there's one at the end of March, and then there's one at the end of April. So we should know very soon if someone is successful with that.
Okay,
Another intake, right?
thank you.
Intake, yeah. Just give us some money, right? I know. Go ahead with your excellent, Councillor Beil.
Okay, thank you. And Mavry, Councillor Martin was away, a much deserved little holiday there. And so I attended the Mavry meeting recently. And of course, they're very, very focused on the Brant Festival, which is starting up. There has been a children's display recently, but the bulk of the activities take place between April 4th and April 7th. And of course, the city of Parksville is a sponsor, so we presumably are all aware of that. But I'd also like to mention that there is the Brant Wildlife Festival Passport, which anyone can obtain from one of the participating businesses, and that runs from April 1st to 14th with some great options, great possibilities for some prizes or other benefits. There will be the main activities, as I mentioned, are from April 4th to 7th, so it's quite condensed, with a liftoff gala taking place on the 4th, and that's at the Beach Club from 5 to 7:30, and tickets are available online only. So again, for anybody out there, if they don't have that already, might look into that. And I really encourage everyone here and beyond to check out the calendar of events. You may have seen it. There was something published in the print newspaper as well as online. And one can go to brantfestival.bc.ca to see that whole list. There's a wonderful range of activities to take part in out in the community. Just really some great opportunities. I know I've circled about 4 of them. I also wanted to bring to everyone's attention just who attends these MABRI meetings, because there is a round table at which everyone presents. And I was not previously aware of who all participated in these meetings. So I'd like to just zip through some of these. So they include representatives from SNNAUS, DIU, Nature Trust, Mosaic, Qualicum First Nations, Islands Trust, City of Parksville, Qualicum Beach, Town of Qualicum Beach, chambers from both Parksville and District, as well as Qualicum Beach, the RDN, the PQBTA, community representatives, and SNUNAMIC. So there's really quite a range of people at the table, and really a wealth of information, as well as special speakers. We had someone talking about herring. If you haven't seen the herring out there, although it's very limited this year, apparently. It's just outside Denman Island and also outside of Qualicum. Also, Mosaic spoke about what they're doing these days, ongoing meetings for open dialogue with water purveyors along the coast and also municipal watersheds. The spring planting in the forest is just beginning. Huge amounts, millions of seedlings that will be going into place, Douglas fir, western red cedar, and white pine. And I thought it was very interesting to learn that they will be hosting, along with MABRI, a new term for me, biogeoclimatic tours in July. So that's all about that. If no one has any questions, I'll turn this off.
That's great. Thanks for that. I can also confirm that the Brant have not waited for the Liftoff Festival to start. The Brant are here in numbers, as well as a zillion other seabirds that are quite enjoying the herring spawn that's going on. And although it seems lesser in our area, it has happened, much to the Brant's delight, in Parksville area and Qualicum. And I can tell you that the Brant are enjoying that feast of herring roe that's out there right now. And it's quite a hive of activity with the sea lions and everything else. And so it's just that special time of year, but the Brant are here ahead of schedule. So once again, they know a good thing. The early Brant gets the fish. So Councillor Martin.
Sorry to interrupt again. Thank you, Councillor Beil, for taking my place last Friday. I find that very interesting, what goes on there at the MABRI. It's 4 meetings a year. And wanted to mention that it's only 2 years ago that they took this over, this Brant Festival, from Nature's Trust. So they take it very seriously, as you can tell, and it's a big deal for us, for MABRI's. But thank you for being there and giving us such an amazing report. You're always so inquisitive. This is very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And any new business anyone would like to bring up at this time? I'd like to call for a movement to adjourn. A mover by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Carries. Thank you so much.